the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Well, look who it is.
If you got a tip for Melissa, a murder mystery in your hometown, an anecdote you heard that might be a lead to an unsolved case, whether chocolate Easter bunnies feel any pain when you, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. It puts the lotion on the skin, or else it gets really dry. Melissa Morgan!
More cowbell. Yeah, I guess I'm blessed, and then I'm kind of greasy. So if Buffalo Bill put me down in his well, I wouldn't be able to get out again. And he wouldn't be able to get me out because I would just slide all over the rope.
Right.
He wouldn't need the lotion.
That's probably, you'd be safe, I guess. I didn't know you were that greasy. You don't seem that greasy.
I am. And it's okay. It's all right. I used to not like it, but as my mom used to say, you're not going to age like other people. And I was like, okay. And that's why I look, like I'm 22.
Well, you do look, I have to say, you do look younger than most women your age. You look pretty damn good.
I appreciate that. That's very sweet. But what do you know? You wear glasses when you read contracts and stuff. So.
Well, yes, but I don't need them
fine
to
lines.
Look at you.
Yeah, no, I'm ageless. Let's just call it what it is. Not really at all. So now I have to address the chocolate bunny issue, and I'm not sure if you're going to remember this, but the first time I met you, 1995, I think.
Yeah.
In at a coffee house bookstore, and you were hosting an open mic, and I was reading some goofy poems I'd written, and one was called Easter Angst.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And I thought it was, bizarre, and you, the sweet, kind man that you are, what you got out of it is that we both had Aunt Irenes.
That's right.
Because I mentioned an Aunt Irene in the poem, and you were like, I have an Aunt Irene too. And I was like, that's not really the point. But so the point of the poem was someone who probably is mentally ill and has a lot of problems with Easter. And I think I started it with like, and then there was the Easter that I poked out all of the chocolate bunny's eyes so they would stop staring at me.
That's right.
I think that was the first stanza.
It was.
So yeah, so that's a great intro that you had there, because I typically I like to eat their ears first.
Right. Everybody does.
Right. Sometimes I start at the butt. Just
really?
to be, yeah. I hardly ever eat the eyes first, but it would make sense that you poke out the eyes or eat the eyes first so they're not staring at you when you're eating the rest of them, because that's just too weird.
Yeah, see, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm going to have to do that from now on, I think.
Yeah, you've started a thing right now. You're a thing starter. So, speaking of things and starting, I'd like to welcome our brand new sponsor, Branchy Branch Sheets. These are top-of-the-line sheets that are made from all-natural ingredients. Free-range, grass-fed trees are used to manufacture these wonderful sheets, and they're made from real branches. And they can, take some time to get used to because you're sleeping on branches, but your body will eventually develop callousing, and then it's not going to hurt so much. And these sheets have been used by many of the top world leaders, including but not limited to U.S. President George Washington. I mean, he had wooden teeth, so it makes sense that he would sleep on wooden sheets. Roman Emperor Julius Caesar, and historical records show that he was taking a nap on his Branchy Branch sheets shortly before he was stabbed by a large group of men. And his last words were really, "A2 Branchy Branch." And then it's widely known that Saddam Hussein was sleeping on his Branchy Branch sheets when he was captured in 2003 in a raid in his spider hole where he was hiding. So if you go to branchybranch.gov.org.net.no and enter the code TIPSTERLOVE, you get 7% off on your first order of Branchy Branch sheets.
I didn't know we had any sponsors. I didn't know we had a new sponsor.
We don't. I made that up.
Oh. I was actually cracking up. I had to turn the sound down.
I thought you were buying in. That you're totally on board.
No, I like that.
Well, I just am tired of not having any sponsors, so I just am going to make them up now.
We're working on that, darling.
Yeah, branchy branch.
Coughing. Sorry.
We don't have cough buttons.
No,
we're not that technologically advanced, but
no, I have to actually manually turn down the mic when I'm cracking up or coughing. Anyway,
and sniffing. No, stop sniffing.
All right, but stop sniffing.
No sniffing.
All right.
So, this story is covered in a lot of places, but small pieces of information that you have to kind of put together. If you want a more encapsulated version, there's an episode of I Survived with Jennifer Holliday, and she and the 911 operator, who she really credits with keeping her awake and alive, got to meet in person on the Montel Williams show. And there's a lot of journalistic endeavors in an attempt to cover the story, but the Daily Sentinel in Texas, the Lufkin Daily News in Lufkin, Texas, a lot of places you can find information, but it's small. So getting it all together was indeed an interesting experiment. But I feel like you get the most from Jennifer Holliday herself, and it's not Jennifer Holliday, the singer from Dreamgirls. It's a different Jennifer Holliday. And I
was so hoping.
Yeah. It's so when you and she spells her name the same way, Holliday, just exactly like the singer, but she was decidedly not a famous singer. She was one of those and is one of those salt of the earth people that you just don't know why sometimes these things happen to them. And someone who had dedicated her young life to helping others, and is cognizant and aware enough to know that what happened to her was terrible, and that it should not happen to anyone else, and it should not have happened to begin with, and especially because she lost a family member. She survives, but her family member does not. And before we get into what happened to them, because it really does bear witness to, if you see something, say something. If you know something, say something. And if you are experiencing anything like this, someone needs to know to save you and potentially someone else in the future. And that's what happened. And a woman who lived in Texas, who was seriously involved with a man. Her name is Monica. At the time, I guess her last name was Simmons. She's remarried and has her 2 children and doesn't want her last name publicized, and I would never do that, and I don't know it. But at the time, she was Monica Simmons, and she lived in a small town in Texas and was dating Eric Parnell. And they'd been together for several years, and she had a daughter with him and was pregnant with a son. And he was behaving more and more erratically. And she decided one night, after they were with some friends, and they were at home, they weren't on the road, and everyone was enjoying cocktails. And Eric was drinking whiskey, and apparently it didn't agree with him, and he became violent and angry, rude to her in front of her friends. She made everyone leave, and she left herself. She took her child, and she was pregnant, and left and moved back in with her mother and stepfather. And they were wonderful at protecting her. And that was in April of 2005. And she said, we just weren't good together. I looked in his eyes, and he had told me, if you leave, I'm going to shoot you. And he had said that 4 times in a row. And she waited until he passed out, and then she left. And she said, that was it. I just thought, how wrong is it for someone to stand in front of you and say so easily, I'm going to shoot you?
Yeah, really unbelievable.
So she said, I moved away and I wanted to start a better life. And she seems like a sweet woman and not unintelligent and not uncompassionate. She has great compassion for what happened to Jennifer Holliday and her cousin, Anna Franklin. And she says, I thought it was better that I get out, and I just wanted to leave. And I thought, okay, we're not good for each other. I must be pushing some sort of button in him, and it's just going to be better if I leave, and everything's going to be okay. So it really wasn't okay. She was able to move on and had some protection. She had her stepfather and her mother and her child and her unborn child, and she was moving on. And a few months later, just before what happened to Jennifer and her cousin, Eric Parnell called Monica and said, I want to get back together. Or I'm sorry, he'd wanted to say that to her, but the call was intercepted by Monica's stepfather. And he said, it's 3 a.m. What do you want? And he said, I want to talk to Monica. And Kenneth Sand, who is Monica's stepfather, said, she has to go to work at 9 a.m. I'm not waking her up, and you're not talking to her. Now, so this is end of May 2005. And he said, I want to talk to her. And Kenneth Sand is like, well, that's not happening. You're just going to have to take no for an answer, and you're going to have to just like it. He called back 3 times.
Oh, boy.
And the 3rd time that Kenneth Sand answered the phone, Eric Parnell said, this time you better enjoy your last night on Earth because you're not going to see another one. And Kenneth Sand said, what do you mean, Eric? What do you think you're saying? And Eric Parnell said, well, what do you think? I'm going to kill you. And Kenneth Sand said, I didn't make you go into this rage. You were already there when you started calling me at 3:29 a.m. So the following morning, Kenneth Sand tells Monica Simmons, your ex-boyfriend called and he's a mess. And she tried to call him and she couldn't get a hold of him. And that was probably what saved her life, because he went on later that day to meet up with Jennifer Holliday and her cousin, Anna Franklin. She was picking up her cousin, who's 18, after her babysitting job. And they stopped at a pick it up store called Pick It Up. I guess it's like a convenience store.
Yeah, like a local 7-Eleven or something. Yeah,
it's actually called the Polk Pick It Up. So Polk, Texas. They stopped by and to get some soft drinks. Now, there's a little bit of discrepancy about exactly what happened. Whether Eric Parnell made some sort of sexual advances toward the girl or girls, or whether he just followed them. They had an interaction of some sort, whether it was just a passing glance or whether he actually said something to the girls. But he saw them at the convenience store, and they got back into their car with Jennifer driving. And he pulled up alongside them and shot into the SUV. And it blew Jennifer Holliday's elbow off.
Oh, my God.
Now, there's glass and blood everywhere, and she pulls over. Anna Franklin, 18-year-old Anna Franklin, is so on top of it. She's already dialing 911. And Eric Parnell gets out of his car, comes up to the window, and Jennifer Holliday thinks he's going to help her, that he's there to help and saw what happened. And he sees that Anna Franklin is on the phone. He attempts to extricate her from the car. And when he can't, he goes back to his car and gets a shotgun and point blank shoots her in the head. She is dead on impact. So
God, I hate this stuff.
Anna Franklin is dead. Jennifer Parnell has had her elbow blown off, and the 911 call is disconnected. Jennifer Holliday is an EMT. She has dedicated her life to saving others' lives, and she is not going down without a fight. She is taken from her vehicle, left on the side of the road. Eric Parnell drags her into the woods and rapes her. He tortures her by putting out a cigarette on her skin and takes an ice pick and jams it into her skull. She begins to feel around her head and notices that it's already scabbed over, and she's worried because she's losing a lot of blood. He is erratic. She is unaware that he is fully intoxicated at this point, but she knows something is very wrong. He starts to act like he doesn't know what happened, that he has forgotten what's happening. And she jumps on that because she's probably had to deal with people who are under the influence in her job as an EMT. And she says, "Oh my gosh, something happened and someone shot me and you stopped to help me. Can you take me to your house? I need to call an ambulance." And he does.
Oh my God. Wow.
He takes her to his very remote trailer. And by then, the 911 call had gotten through, even though it was disconnected. God bless Anna Franklin for dialing 911. They are all over the area where the car is. They recognize Jennifer because her Gold Star ambulance badge for work is hanging on her rearview mirror. And they're like, she's one of us. We got to find her. They comb the woods. Can't find her. Can't find any sign of anything. She is in Eric Parnell's trailer, and apparently it was very hard to find. She convinces him to let her use the phone. She tells him that it's all okay. She won't say what happened, but that he, has done so much to help her. She'll marry him. He told her that he had wanted to drag Anna out of the car and rape her, and that he was angry at all women. They've all disappointed him. She tells him, "How could anyone disappoint you? Look at all you've done to help me."
Oh, God.
She is going through all of this on a 40-minute 911 call to a dispatcher, and they are trying desperately to find his remote trailer.
Oh, so she called 911, got through.
On his phone.
Oh, my God.
And when he starts to get agitated and say, they're gonna arrest me, they're gonna be angry at me, I'm gonna go to prison. No, I'm gonna tell them what you've done to help me. 40 minutes. She's losing blood. She is saying, this man stopped to help me, someone shot me, and then occasionally handing the phone to him because she is trying not to pass out. He eventually gives them directions to his trailer.
Oh, my God.
Directions to his trailer.
This is just incredible.
Walks to the end of his dirt road and directs the ambulance into the trailer. Directs them in to find her. The second they get to her, she says, "I was lying. He did this. He raped me. He killed my cousin. He did all of this. Please arrest him now." And they do immediately.
Oh, God.
Now, she had tried to fight at the beginning, which when you see Eric Parnell's booking photo, he has a black eye. And you had hoped that he had gotten it, somehow, and, not pretty. And it was really good because she got in one good fucking punch. She's bleeding. Her elbow is shattered. And she punched him so hard she gave him a black eye. But then she realized that just made him more angry. So then she became, the passive girlfriend. I'll marry you. We can live together. You've helped me through this terrible ordeal. So
how can anybody think that clearly? That's
Exactly.
amazing to me.
Exactly. So I feel the whole thing is terrible. The whole thing is terrible. But how clear thinking is Jennifer Holliday when she says, I've never met this man. I don't know this man. He has killed my family member who's not just my cousin, but my friend. I'm picking her up from her babysitting job. We enjoy spending time together. All of this. And she finds out that he had been thrown out of a bar earlier that night for being too intoxicated.
Man.
Thrown out of a bar. And, I know that there are some states, cities, areas where a bar owner can be sued if there is an accident involving a drunk driver, if someone is killed or injured, if someone has been overserved. But I don't know if there's a precedent for kicking someone out of your bar who is intoxicated, over-intoxicated, shouldn't be driving. And then he goes on to kill a woman and basically destroy another woman's life. Now, Jennifer Holliday is an amazing girl, and she is fighting for her life every day. And what has happened to her is really shitty. It's really shitty. She can no longer be an EMT. She has lost most of the nerves in her arm. She wouldn't be able to pass a physical test that you would have to pass to be an EMT. She can not only not be an EMT, she can't brush her hair. She can't tie her 8-year-old son's shoes. It's an awful thing. She made too much money at $40,000 a year as an EMT to qualify for the kind of medical treatment she would need. So she loses her job, goes on Social Security disability for $900 a month.
Oh, my God.
Moves in with her grandmother, with her son, and doesn't qualify for the type of care in her area that she needs. So instead of physical therapy that would potentially help her to be able to get another job that, she could do with her limited ability with her arm, she has to drive 175 miles one way to Galveston for physical therapy and 175 miles back. So she only can do it once a month.
That's making like $11,000 a year from disability. My God.
Yeah.
This is a story not just about the murder and the this is about other stuff too.
Yes. So she manages to keep this positive attitude no matter what's happening. And maybe it's her son, her aunt who lost her daughter Anna, her aunt Robin Franklin, shows up at the hospital 2 years after this. She's able to get a hopefully more helpful surgery. When it first happened in 2005, she had 5 surgeries, and they put plates to hold the bone together so it could heal. They put in screws. They did a lot of work. And unfortunately, it wasn't all helpful. The plates were a good thing to be there to help her bone mend itself, but one of the screws broke off and went into what was left of her elbow that he obliterated. And the pain was so excruciating that she took herself to the ER numerous times. Now, this is a woman who's an EMT, and she wouldn't go to the ER unless it were really bad. So in 2007, her aunt shows up at the hospital with a little stuffed ladybug. And that's because her daughter, Anna Franklin, collected ladybugs. And she wanted her niece to know, even though my daughter's gone, she's here. She's watching over you. She's with you. Her mother has this beautiful way of describing it. She said, I believe Anna is hopping from star to star looking down at us. So Jennifer has a pretty extensive surgery in September of 2007. They remove the 2 steel plates that held the bone together. They take out 19 pins from her arm. They call it a release surgery, which is interesting. I've never heard that term. Probably any of the listeners in the medical field will know what that means. The surgeon made a correction to her elbow to hopefully restore the range of movement that she lost. But even the surgeon says, look, medical science can't replace nerves. We're not there yet. Maybe they will be someday, but they're not there. So Jennifer's grandmother and her aunt wait in the hospital after the operation, and her grandmother says Jennifer wants to work. I hope that she can get to a point where she can train for a different job. I know she can't do what she's always wanted to do, which is be an EMT, but hopefully she can find another job that she can do with what she has. And her grandmother said, this surgery is a gift from God. And it really turned out to be a gift. A former senator had heard her story and looked into the Commonwealth Fund Commission to see if she could qualify for these programs at this Memorial Hospital. And the president of the CEO and president, Dan Walterman of Memorial Hermann Hospital, said, we're going to do this for free. So they won't release what it cost for this surgery, which I'm glad, because it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
That's right.
They don't care. They are just saying, we want her to get better and we want her to have access to quality health care. So, I'm sure she has some of her mobility back. I don't know, how much she's ever going to have back, but she still has 37 shotgun pellets in her arm and shoulder and chest. And the surgeon said, we can't remove all of these because probing for the pellets would cause more damage than it would do anything to help. So even with what happened to Jennifer Holliday, she says she understands. She understands the system. And she knows that, disability isn't the thing that's going to keep her. Unfortunately, she's had, her electricity turned off a couple times. And that's when she decided, I need to move in with my grandmother because I can't make this work for the two of us. She doesn't want to be on, housing assistance, but, she didn't know what else to do. So that's why she ended up moving in with her grandmother. And she says, I try to deal with this every day, just one day at a time. And that's what everyone says to do. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I know that a bad attitude isn't going to help me at all. And she's right. The bad attitude that she doesn't have, thank God, would not make anything any better. But she is kind of in my mind, she's a real hero. And she says she still goes to the cemetery about once a week and sits there and talks to her cousin Anna and says, I am trying to move on. I'm trying to do whatever I can to move on, but I'm also trying to raise awareness. This should never have happened. This man should not have been out walking around to begin with. He had, domestic violence charges with his first girlfriend, Monica. He, had this record of and a history of domestic violence and a history of driving while intoxicated. He had warrants for his arrest at the time of his, murdering her cousin and trying to kill her. And he'd been kicked out of the bar that night, and instead of calling the police, they just told him to leave, and he got in his car and drove away and then ran into her. And she says, it's just really hard to know that this could have been prevented. And she's right. It could have been prevented. But she gives all credit to Stephanie Davidson, the 911 dispatcher, who she said, I'm telling you, I would have lost it. Although I don't know that she's giving herself enough credit. Someone who can convince someone that they didn't murder a family member, rape and torture her, and attempt to murder her, and that they are somehow her savior enough that she can call 911. I don't know that she ever would have lost it. But thank God she had this wonderful 911 dispatcher to help her through what had to be the toughest day, night, morning of her life. And she said this woman knew what she was doing. And this is from an EMT who I'm sure dealt with 911 dispatchers daily, and said she really knew what she was doing. She just kept telling me, hold on, you're going to make it. Hold on, we're almost there. You hold on. And she did. And she really did. And those are the people, they're both heroes in my mind. They're both heroes. Towers of strength for making it through that, and a tower of strength for talking someone through that when you would probably want to throw the phone down and start crying yourself. They're both heroes. And Monica, who feels bad, and I wish she wouldn't, but of course, survivor's guilt, you would feel bad, has her stepfather, Kenneth Sand, to speak for her, and he does a wonderful and honest job of saying, my daughter is beating herself up and thinking, what would have happened if I'd stayed? What if I could have done something differently? Maybe I should have stayed. And Kenneth Sand said, I know exactly what would have happened. She would have been the one who's dead. So if you have to leave a situation, you have to leave. And I hope you have the strength to take care of yourself. And while you hope that someone who may be bad to you is not bad to someone else, you take care of you first, and hopefully someone else will take care of that person. And more cowbell.
Remember, if you've got a tip for Melissa, give her a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com.